I love Derek Barnett.
A lot of people do. They're not lying about that. I tell you all the time.
We're not married to Jalen Hurts. We're not giving Jalen Hurts a guaranteed money contract here. We like Jalen Hurts for 2022 because Russell Wilson didn't want to come here.
A midweek edition of Birds 365. Been a busy week because of the owners' meetings down in Florida. I'm very interested in the insight of our next guest. He's one of our favorites. Does a great job whenever he fills in for John as my co-host. Jeff Kerr hops aboard here on Birds 365. Kerr, they're keeping you busy this week, huh?
Keeping me busy this week. Was busy last week. The only way I can get a vacation is if I take one. This NFL offseason has been absolutely insane.
Well, you look good in front of the Ocean Casino and Resort, so enjoy the weather in front of Ocean, which is going to be better tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, much better. Better than what
finally.
No snow? Is that what you're saying, John McMullen? No snow tomorrow? I don't have to clean off my car?
Give it 24 hours. It'll probably be back. All right, I'm going to start this way with you, Jeff. In my 25 years of covering this league, I was invested in 3 draft picks: Tom Brady, Aaron Donald, Randy Moss. Anybody else I didn't care about. Are you buying that? Are you buying that? Yeah. Everybody else is somebody else's fault. Is that something you can sell? Because that's what Jeffrey Lurie did yesterday. That was the most laugh out loud moment to me, when he talked about being invested in draft picks, and he brought up Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, and to throw, one bad one because we didn't get him, Russell Wilson. We'll throw that in to make it a little bit more believable. How believable on a scale of 1 to 100 was that to you, Jeff Kerr?
A 3. If he's more invested in the draft picks, maybe the Eagles wouldn't botch it.
Yeah. Why don't you get real invested in every draft pick? Because this team would have about 7 rings by this point over that 20. If that's your hit rate, you better get involved, Jeff. Yeah,
this is way before I even became, what I was going to do for a living. The only draft pick I was really invested in, I'll say 2, McNabb and Brian Westbrook, because I never understood the billing of McNabb on draft day. Again, that's another rabbit hole I don't want to enter, but Brian Westbrook was a local kid, Villanova, so I'm like, all right, cool, the Eagles got him. I hope he's a good player, and they ended up being my 2 favorite players growing up. So, but besides that, Jeffrey Lurie could just pick any player if you want to. Yeah, if he would have said I was invested in Carson Wentz, I would have been a lot more sold on that. But no, he just happened to pick Jordan Mailata of all people.
And oh, by the way, who's going to call him on the carpet? He's the owner. Nobody's going to stand up and say, if they want to continue to work for him or potentially work him down the road, hey, Jeff, that's just not the way it happened. Nobody's going to do that. So he can spin whatever yarn he wants to, like he did attempt to yesterday. All right, Jeff Kerr, you need to jump into the middle of this because McMullen and I have been going back and forth on it for a couple of weeks. Derek Barnett's team-friendly 4.5 million, maybe goes up to 5.55, but that's the odds are against it because he'd have to play all 17 games. 1 year contract for the Eagles. Good deal, bad deal. Kind of like the way John McMullen feels about Kelly Green. Who cares?
I was going to mention that to you earlier about the Kelly Green stuff, John, but overall, I don't hate it. I don't hate a 1-year deal for a guy who's going to be at best their number 3 defensive end. I mean, because you already got Josh Sweat, you got Hassan Reddick in there. They're already lining up on the edge. Brandon Graham's coming back. We all seem to forget that because he was injured in week 2 last year. Who knows how healthy Brandon Graham's going to be, or if he'll be 100% recovered from that injury, or will ever be the same player. But he's still going to be ahead of Barnett. I figure they're going to add somebody in the draft with one of those high picks. So if Derek Barnett's going to be a situational pass rusher for them, I don't hate it at all. You need depth at that position. Last year they didn't have it, and Derek Barnett wasn't what we thought he was going to be last year. But overall, I just don't hate the deal. It's edge rushers get paid a premium amount. You guys know that, and that's why $4.5 million to me that's chump change.
It is for that position, and I think it comes down to what is Derek Barnett's role. Jody has brought up, look, if they don't take an edge rusher, and one's got to be there, because remember, David Ojabo's injury kind of affects things as far as that 15 spot. So there's at least an outside chance that those top 5 guys won't even make it. The 5th guy won't even make it to 15. But let's say if they have a choice between Jermaine Johnson and George Karlaftis for the sake of argument, and they pass on those players because they have Derek Barnett, that would be a concern to me. Jody brought that up. I think that would be a legitimate concern. Does this change their thinking at all in the draft?
It shouldn't. And for the reasons you just pointed out, I'm not married to Derek Barnett. I know they brought him back, but I think they brought him back at more of their rate than Derek Barnett's rate. If you're looking at all the edge rusher contracts around the league, Derek Barnett's just a part-time player. And so if there's one of those guys, especially Jermaine Johnson, I'd be running to the phone to say, hey, we're going to take him. That's the guy. But overall, edge rushers, to me, there's such a premium in this league, and you have to develop them. And I think that's why Derek Barnett is still here, because it gives somebody extra time to develop. Like I always thought maybe Derek Barnett would figure it out by year 4 or year 5, like Randy Graham did, and it never happened. And that's what's frustrating to me about this whole thing. I don't feel like, we fill the need. And I know Howie Roseman doesn't like to draft based on need, but you still have a need for edge rusher. You still have a need for linebacker. You still have a need for cornerback. You still have a need for safety. You have a need for wide receiver. If they don't draft an edge rusher with one of those 3 picks, I'll be a little disappointed, but I get it based on the scope of the team right now.
You'll be disappointed. I'll be ticked off. They need a young, good edge rusher.
They do.
If they don't, then shame on them. Yeah, and if all 5 of them are off the board, okay, fine. You don't want to reach for an edge rusher. I'll certainly sign on to that. But if either Karlaftis or Johnson are available and they pass to take a corner, they pass to take a wide receiver, and Derek Barnett's playing 45% of the snaps again next year, I got a problem with it. I thought it was funny you used the phrase married. I actually thought Nick Sirianni came close to proposing to Derek Barnett yesterday. I love Derek Barnett.
A lot of people do. They're not lying about that. I tell you all the time. Jim Schwartz loved Derek Barnett. Nick likes him.
John, let me tell you who doesn't love Derek Barnett. The rest of the National Football League. He had to take a 1-year make-good $4.5 million deal with the Eagles because he felt the comfort zone.
The only reason he's back.
The other 31 teams in the league don't love him. Why did the Eagles love him? Why did Jim Schwartz love him? Why does John McMullen love him? Why does Jeff Kerr love him? I don't love this guy. He's not that good a player.
I would say I do not love him in the way Jim Schwartz loves him. I think that is incorrect. I think he's a good potential rotational player, as Jeff described it as well. Potential. Now, here's the problem, and I'll throw this to both you guys. There's a number of things, and Jody kind of brought it up at the beginning of the show, poking me. I'm getting me in trouble with the fan base because I don't give a flying you-know-what about Kelly Green, which is honest. I'm being honest. Now, Jeffrey Lurie and Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon, who's not involved because he hasn't been speaking, but they know this fan base doesn't like Derek Barnett, and they kind of go over the top, as Jody pointed out, with the effusive love. Jeffrey sort of dismissed, the question of, extending Howie Roseman by saying, "Oh, it was such an easy decision." Fan base doesn't like Howie Roseman, large portions of it. Does this affect this team at some point that they're so dismissive of the fans when in situations that they become passionate about?
Well, you bring it up the Kelly Green stuff. we listened to you, we heard you. Well, don't tell fans that, because if you go on social media and type in Howie Roseman, you're most likely getting Howie Roseman is the worst GM in the NFL. And like the other week, I posted 14 GMs. I'm like, okay, these are 14 GMs you might be able to argue they're better than Howie Roseman. But keep in mind, when you do this experiment, he's probably in the middle of the pack. So if you're doing 14, that's 7 or 8.
Yeah, I can't get to 14. You know how I got in trouble. I said he might be top 5. There's no way I can get to 14.
Yeah,
there's no way.
And I remember I had a couple people say, "How can you say Jerry Jones is better?" I'm like, I didn't say he was better. I just said these are guys you can argue that are better than Howie Roseman. I'm not going to agree or disagree with you, but overall, this is how I always looked at the Howie Roseman extension. If the Eagles, why would you have Howie Roseman, the lame duck GM, making your 3 first-round picks? Why would you want to do that to yourself? That's how you suck as a franchise. You let Howie Roseman play this year on a lame duck contract. So in a way, you had to sign him.
And by the way, before you jump in, Jody, because I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. I think Jeffrey's right on this one. I think it is an easy decision. But should he couch it better, because he understands that not everyone agrees with him that it is an easy decision?
I think it was the right thing to bring Howie Roseman back. I think you needed to. I will be honest again, and I know we could go off on a tangent for 20 minutes, but I do continue to dislike the reporting of he signed a 3-year contract extension, but his contract matches up with Nick Sirianni. Those two things don't equate. If he signed a 3-year contract extension, that means he has 4 years to go on his contract. Nick Sirianni only has 3. So which one is it? I believe that he matches up with Sirianni, but that's neither heck or high water here. Yeah, they had to do it. Howie's done a good job. John, you might have him a little higher than me at number 5. Jeff, you got him there, maybe 14 or better. He's somewhere in the middle of that. He's the 6th, 7th, 8th general manager. He's done a good job. We know what Howie's strengths are. We know what his weaknesses are.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that Jeffrey said, it's not the first time he said it, you know, and I've said it, and he's right. And, you know, people judge you on first-round picks. That's it. And this is just massive.
That's why Derek Barnett is coming back to play for the Eagles again.
And this is a massive job, which he tries to explain. There's so many tentacles to this particular job that delve into not only personnel, but management structure. And we were just talking about Jeff coaching staff, and we'll get into that. You know, it's Howie's responsibility. You know, Nick had a group of guys he knew he wanted, Nick Sirianni. You know, Howie focused in on Jonathan Gannon. Howie focused in on Brian Johnson. And then he brings candidates where there's not a concrete selection by Nick Sirianni, and says, all right, interview these guys and see if you want them. And then the coach makes the decision. At least that's how the Eagles frame it. And I think that's the way it goes down. Then afterwards, I think Jeffrey Lurie gets into it a little bit too much. But is it just hard to explain to people and make them understand how big the job of an NFL general manager is? Or is it just, you know, first round pick good, first round pick bad?
I think it's hard to explain to people. Like, it's more than just first round picks. It's second round picks. It's cap management. Everybody goes, oh, it's easy to manipulate the cap. I'm like, well, one of the first guys to manipulate the cap was Howie Roseman. So he was one of the first dummy void year guys. And, you know, he was able
between the Fletcher Cox contract and the Derek Barnett contract, I got to sit for hours to figure out what the hell's going on with these things. These are complicated pieces of work that don't happen in other cities, and they always come down to the Eagles' advantage. Always. And it's scary.
And I get it. Like, it's very upsetting how the first wave of free agency went for them. They did make a run at Marcus Williams. They couldn't get him, and I don't blame Marcus Williams for going to Baltimore. You get to play Marlon Humphrey. You get to play with Marcus Peters in the same secondary. Mike McDonald's your defensive coordinator. Everything I hear about Mike McDonald is John Gannon-esque. So why not go play with those guys? Why not play in a passionate city like Baltimore, who's willing to rebuild that defense, and who knows that they were basically 21 guys on injured reserve, and they still were leading the AFC at one point last year. So I don't blame for that. It's a better fit for them. And maybe the Eagles didn't match the offer the Ravens were. I don't know. Maybe the Ravens just went a little up. And I get not getting a number 2 wide receiver, a veteran, was frustrating. But do you really want to pay some of these guys like $13, $14 million? And it's tough. It really is. I know a lot of people took the Juju Smith-Schuster comments out of proportion, but really I get a chance to catch passes from Patrick Mahomes. That's not a knock on Jalen Hurts.
Right.
So overall, I get it. Like, I don't think the timing of the extension was great. We're not doing anything in free agency. But we'll make sure Howie Roseman signs a 3-year extension. Maybe they should have waited until after the draft to do that.
Jeff, let me ask you about Nick Sirianni talking about the offense yesterday. He said that we have to improve in certain areas of the passing game, but he was a guy who, when things went south, turned to the running game this year. He said we got to get more weapons around Jalen Hurts, but yet Zach Pascal is the big addition. Again, I don't necessarily agree with the coach's evaluation of players. I think he overstates what Zach Pascal is. Will they get something done between now and the draft as far as adding another weapon? Doubt very highly it's going to be a running back. A tight end, too, doesn't do anything for me. So it comes down to one thing, wide receiver. Are they going to get something done? You mentioned that the price of poker has gone up with wide receivers. Jarvis Landry's asking for $20 million. Come on, Jarvis. You can't really be serious to put that number out there, but he's going to be over $10 million for sure. Will the Eagles be able to land someone like that?
I doubt it. You mentioned the perfect one, Jarvis Landry. That price is astronomical. There's no reason they should go after that. Will Fuller, he's intrigued me a bit, but I could see him going to Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, just trying to connect some dots here. Devontae Parker would be nice, but again, there's going to be a lot of teams interested in him too. What are you going to have to give up to get? I think the best route for them is honestly via trade if they can find a way to get one of those wide receivers. I know a lot of people talk about DK Metcalf. I would give up a first-round pick for a guy like that, but that's just me. I don't know if a lot of teams are going to do that. Maybe the Patriots will get desperate. There's so many teams in need of a wide receiver, so maybe the best route is via the draft. But if they can get a quality player via trade, I'm all for it. But again, I don't want to dismiss anything because I've seen teams make trades in April, and the Eagles have been one of them.
Well, we've talked about they have been one of them. They are apt to trade. And I think you're right. I think the goal was obviously get a veteran at the wide receiver position. And I think that's the right way to go. I think that would be the preferable way to go instead of adding another rookie to a very young receiving room. But when we talk about offense positions as a whole, the position is quarterback. Now, I want to go back to Jeffrey Lurie because, again, there are people who, and understandably so, Jeffrey gave this sort of quote and talked about Jalen being a 23-year-old playoff quarterback who gets better every year, whether it's in college or the pros. All of that is true. Mentioned no one knows where he's going to end up, what his ceiling is, but incredibly dedicated, excellent leader of men. He called him. Players gravitate towards him. You've heard all these things on Birds 365 100 times. And Jeffrey said, that's why we're committed to Jalen at 23, period. And a lot of people put the period there. The next comment was, and he ended it, who knows what the future holds, right? A lot of people left that part off. Jeffrey's savvy. He knows how to leave a little bit of light in the door, a little bit of a crack. Was that on purpose?
I think so. I think it's more of we're married to Jalen Hurts for this year. We're not married to Jalen Hurts. We're not giving Jalen Hurts a guaranteed money contract here. We like Jalen Hurts for 2022 because Russell Wilson didn't want to come here. And Deshaun Watson, who I don't want any part of, is not here. So we couldn't get that franchise quarterback this offseason, but maybe next offseason we'll find that franchise quarterback in the draft. And, just leaving open the door for whatever. If this offseason was crazy, next offseason is going to be crazy because everybody's going to try to keep up with, and I keep blaming them for it, but the Kansas City Chiefs and Buffalo Bills because they got two guys that aren't going anywhere, and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Then next year, the Eagles might be ready to strike in an NFC where we don't know if Tom Brady's going to come back after this year. I assume he is, but Aaron Rodgers getting older. He might consider retirement. And all of a sudden, you got the Rams, and that's it. And so maybe that's when the Eagles strike. If they can build on last year and win 9-10 games again, and maybe a playoff game. And
well, that to follow up real quick, Jeff, how do you strike if you improve on 9 wins? You're not going to be in a position to get up at the top of the draft, even if you love Bryce Young or if it's CJ Stroud or whomever. You're not going to be in that position. I call it, and Jody knows, the "we're not ready" crowd is what I call it. What makes people assume that when you are ready, you'll be in a position to strike for a top tier talent anywhere, not just quarterback, anywhere?
It's tough. I think that's the toughest decision in all sports. And I see this in the NBA all the time. When I'm watching the NBA, it's the Sixers thought they were ready to strike. And I don't think they're any better now than what they were before they had James Harden. So that's how I'm looking at the situation. You're right. When do you feel the time is now? The Rams obviously got it right because they said, okay, we got this talented roster. We're going to give up these draft picks. The whole Les Snead shirt, F them picks. So, again, it's like, well, we'll move on. And we'll move on for Jared Goff, a guy we invested in for multiple years. And they go and get Matthew Stafford. They win a Super Bowl. So I don't think the Eagles are even close to being there yet. Maybe a couple years of prolonged success, or right now I think the Eagles are a mediocrity, if I want to be honest with you. I think they're that team that they're going to be a playoff team in the NFC because the NFC isn't any good. I rank them 6th out of the 16 NFC teams for CBS this week, and I keep looking at them as I see potential, but they have so many holes on their roster. But then again, who's going to pass them this year? Are the Vikings? I'm not sure of that. Or the Saints? I'm not sure. So it's right now, I think they are what they are right now, and that's a 9-10 win football team that has the potential to be better.
I guess I'm going to get into a semantical debate with you. If the Eagles are mediocre and you have them ranked 6th out of 16 teams in the NFC, what the hell does it say about 7 through 16?
When I rank
AAA football,
they're bad. Like there are some bad teams in the NFC. Like, when I ranked Washington, I ranked them 10th, and I'm like, did this team really get any better getting Carson Wentz? I'm not sure. There's so many questions with a lot of the bad teams in the NFC. The Falcons are going to be terrible. The Giants are probably going to be terrible. The Panthers don't have a quarterback, so you got to rank them ahead. The NFC South might be an absolute joke when it's all said and done. Like I like Jameis Winston on the Saints, but can Dennis Allen coach? I mean, he has like 8 wins in 2 years as a head coach. I don't think he's a good coach at all. So they lost Marcus Williams. There's still a lot of talent on that team, but Seattle traded Russell Wilson, so they're going to be bad. The NFC East is bad. The NFC North is a joke. The Lions might be the one team that rises above the ashes here. That's how bad the NFC North is. They're probably going to be better than Chicago. The Vikings, it seems like they're good every other year. They're trying to fix their defense. There's so many bad teams in the NFC, so that's why I keep saying the Eagles are mediocre. Like I rank the Browns 11th, and I think the Browns have a talented roster. I'm just not sure if their quarterback's going to play the first 6 weeks.
Well, Jeff, that kind of circles me back to my last question is, well, if that's the landscape, then I think you're right. I think the NFC is certainly, not the AFC, to be kind. why aren't the Eagles seizing this moment? I mean, the three teams we all look at have significant issues in that Tom Brady is 167 years old. Who knows, and I hesitate, but we all know Father Time, blah, blah, blah.
Forget
But he's
about
also,
that. He lost 2 key men on his offensive
yes,
line.
he's also lost 40% of his offensive line, who were good
I think
players.
it's Jack Mason, though, which I think is
Yeah.
on par with Alex Kappa.
Fair point. But they have some issues. We don't know, how things are going to shake out, and they've lost significant talent. Same thing with the Packers, most notably Devontae Adams, but they've taken hits on defense with Zadarius Smith, and they lost their nickel corner as well, former Eagles great Chandon Sullivan. And they've lost a number of other players. And the Rams have taken hits, not only as Super Bowl champions tend to be, not only from a personnel standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint. They get pilfered from all their assistants every year. Those are the three top teams, and you can poke holes in all of them. So why are we sitting here with the Eagles, a playoff team, as they will constantly tell you, and is factually correct? Why do so many people say they're not ready in this, but maybe they're not ready in the AFC? I'm on board with that. If they were in the AFC, I'd probably go, yeah, this isn't going to work. In the NFC, why this hand wringing? Woe is me. We can't compete. Why not? Why can't you compete in this dreck of a conference?
Maybe they thought they were, and the guy that they wanted said, I ain't coming here. Russell Wilson. So maybe that was the guy they wanted to put all the chips at the poker table, and they just said, no, thanks, but no thanks. I'm not coming over there. And maybe that was just it. I think the Eagles are thinking, if we keep the same team, the same continuity, and just get deeper because we have these draft picks, maybe that's going to help us get to the next level. Like, I thought them playing better in the playoff game against the Bucs would have been a huge step, but I got to look at the facts. They were down 31-0 in that playoff game, and no one played well. The defense did not play well. The quarterback did not play well. The coach didn't coach well. The Bucs stopped the one strength the Eagles had, and that was the ball game. And that was one of the teams I just did not want to see the Eagles play in the playoff game was Tampa because of Tom Brady and everything else. And I think the Eagles' next step is, let's try to win the division, which is very, very attainable this year. Dallas took a huge step back because they do not know how to handle free agency to save their life. They lost La'el Collins. They lost Amari Cooper. But they'll pay Ezekiel Elliott $18 million a year. They'll pay their second best running back $18 million a year. And Dak's contract is way too high for them. They'll probably make up for it with the draft. But overall, it's that team that swept the Eagles last year, and I look more at the week 3 game, obviously. I don't think Dallas is 20 points better than the Eagles anymore. I don't even know if they're 5 points better than the Eagles anymore. So maybe that's what the Eagles are thinking. Maybe we just stay the course and just look at the long run here. We can build something, and we maybe can compete with now the Dallas Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals. Well, by the way, I actually rank the Eagles higher than the Cardinals right now because the Cardinals lost a lot too. So that's how I'm looking at it. We might be better than that second tier of NFC team.
Hey, if they're one of the tallest midgets in the circus in the NFC, I'll take it. Yesterday, you got to do a lot of this over the last couple of days, reading between the lines. I'm going to ask you to do so here, Jeff Kerr. When asked, I don't even remember what the question was about, but somehow he turned it into a referendum on the cornerback position on the Philadelphia Eagles right now. The coach started rattling off names.
He got them all, too.
Zach Mack and McMahon and Tay Gowan.
He got them all.
He just kept ripping off names. You say you couldn't pick McCain out of a lineup, right, Johnny Mack?
No, I did see Mack when he came back for the third time. I did see him, so I do know.
You do know. I couldn't do that with Kerry Vincent. No clue what the guy looks like whatsoever. But he did get mentioned by the Eagles yesterday. The head coach has got his name on the tip of his tongue. Are we supposed to read into this Jeff Kerr first-round draft pick A cornerback is sitting there. Why would we need a cornerback? We've got Zach McPherson. We're good. We've got depth on this roster. Cornerback's not an issue for this team. That scare you at all, buddy?
Oh, that scares the heck out of me. I don't trust Zach McPherson to replace Steven Nelson as the number 2 quarterback right now. I'll say this. If the Eagles have a chance to get a veteran number 2 quarterback in here or draft one in the first round, they're going to do it. I'm not buying the smoke that Zach McPherson, Mac McCain, what's the other guy? What's the guy? Tay Gowan.
Gary Vincent.
Yeah, I'm not ready to go down that yet. So,
by the way, Nick said when they asked him that question, he said, "I don't want to leave anybody out," and he got them all. That was the most impressive part of the Nick Sirianni press conference. He got them all. And
way to go! Can name your players.
Zach
go
McPherson,
immediately to the Hall of Fame, Nick Sirianni.
I will have so much respect for Nick Sirianni, McMullen. If you and I are at training camp this summer and he just goes up to us and say, "Point out my cornerbacks," I'll be like, I'm like, I'll do it by jersey number. I'm probably not going to be able to do it if they don't have their jerseys on, just because. Outside of Darius Slay, they don't really have McPherson. They don't have much. Oh, Vontae Max, sorry.
Yeah, they do have a very good slot corner that people tend to forget about. But you're right. I mean, when did Steve Nelson come in last year? 2 days before training camp,
right.
and he was the starting corner. So when Howie says talent acquisition season is longer than 10 days, he's correct. And the Eagles will get a corner, whether it's the draft or the veteran round. Might even be Steve Nelson, because Steve is still out there.
By the way, he's not helping his
angry on Twitter. Yes, he's angry on Twitter.
Yeah,
because he's not getting the money he deserves, and this is probably the 3rd straight year he's not getting the money he deserves. So, for whatever reason, if you can't run, and I put that in quotations, they don't want to pay you as a cornerback in the NFL. But I'll end it with Howie with you, Jeff. Jeff at Jeff Kerr CBS. Read him at CBS. General managers have to build, and I've asked this a lot of people. Jody's probably tired of it, but I got to get everybody's input on this because I think it's interesting. You know, fans, understandably so, tend to think about things in yearly intervals. They're worried about 2022. GM's got to think about the bigger picture, not only 2022, but 2023, certainly 2024. They say it's 3 years. It's more 2 years now, but either way, you got to have a 2-year window. Jalen Hurts is going to be eligible for an extension after this season. You see the cost of doing business at the quarterback position. Howie knows it better than anybody. So they're already thinking about that. You know, what are these landmarks going to be? What is the extension going to be? Does that change their thinking when it comes to young quarterbacks? In other words, Jalen Hurts is going to, if Jalen Hurts plays the way he played last year, he's going to get $30+ million a year.
Yes. And
do you start thinking about the Sam Howells of the world and start, we got to turn this over. We got to stay cost effective while we're looking for the superstar.
I think so. I think if Jalen Hurts doesn't make improvements from last year, you just kind of make him a lame duck at that point in year 4. And then you start looking at a better 2023 draft class, or maybe even 2024, and just say, hey, you know, this is the business. And it seems like the teams that win now are the teams that have quarterbacks on team-friendly deals. You know, we're seeing the effects of Patrick Mahomes' extension in Kansas City. Tyreek Hill's gone. And they're trying to replenish with young wide receivers and draft picks. And eventually it's going to happen in Buffalo, too, with Josh Allen. His extension's going to kick in. Right now, the team in the best spot among those teams with quarterbacks on rookie deals is the Ravens, because they haven't signed their guy yet. And, boy, that was an interesting comment. We'll sign him when he's ready to sign. And I'm like, whoa. And I think Lamar Jackson saw $230 million to Deshaun Watson, who is not a model citizen. What am I going to get? Because I got guys like Jeff Kerr just putting out stats about me left and right. So
I guarantee you, I wasn't in Palm Beach, but Jimmy Haslam got some dark looks from his peers.
Yeah, but
for that
they asked
contract.
Jeffrey about that yesterday. He wouldn't comment. He doesn't comment on other teams, other contracts. He wouldn't get involved. They tried to suck him into a comment on not only Deshaun Watson and his off-field behavior, but also how the contract's going to affect the NFL going forward. Jeffrey did the two-step around that one. Wouldn't answer that. I don't comment on other players' contracts or other teams' contracts.
And he generally does that. To be fair, he doesn't talk about other players. But yeah, it affects him. It affects every owner. That contract.
The only owner I think that made a comment on another player, and we still know who the player was. Oh, we were prepared to offer 2 first-round picks for a quarterback season.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, all right, Jim Irsay. Like,
Jim Irsay was. He was not kind to Carson Wentz. After Frank Reich was very kind. And then Jim Irsay went the 180 route on poor Carson.
I really want to know what Carson Wentz fully did in that building to just make that Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard absolutely hate him.
No, I think they were just evaluating, although John was defending Carson earlier that more guys on the team liked him than not. He's just not a likable guy. He wasn't here. He wasn't there. Frank Reich tried to create it in his own mind that he was, and that's why they acquired him. And then after a year of having him, everybody else got to chime in with an opinion, and they said, this guy's got to go.
I think he's honestly, I think it's more odd. I think he's odd. I don't think he's unlikable. I just think he's one of those guys where he'll say something you're like, what? What did he just say?
He's an introvert who is uncomfortable around people.
You can't be an introvert if you're going to be a quarterback in the National Football League. It's kind of one of the job requirements to be non-introverted.
Be Jalen Hurts. I hate to say, you got to be Jalen Hurts. You got to get everybody to gravitate toward you in that room. And
I agree. It makes it very, very difficult. But I'm just talking about the likable versus unlikable aspect. And a lot of people take it the wrong way. And by the way, I got to throw, and people, I shouldn't go down this route, but I will. Religion plays into it as well. People are very uncomfortable. Not everyone, but some people are very uncomfortable around people who wear their faith on their sleeve, like Carson does.
Even
JK,
are uncomfortable with that. It all depends what religion you are, but that's how far as I'll go.
I do want to wrap on this note. Every day I write down how many days till opening day and how many shows we've done here on Birds 365. I need to find a middle number. Well, it's 29 days till the first round of the NFL draft, where the Eagles have 3 picks, which just doesn't happen in the NFL. You don't find teams with 3 picks in the first round, so they have a cachet to use and improve this team. Will anything happen before that Thursday night? Will the Eagles make a trade, trading up, trading back, a day before the draft, a week before the draft? Oh, sure enough, that Carson Wentz conversation pops up again. They had to wiggle their way into position to be able to take Carson Wentz, so they did it before the actual day of the draft. Are we going to get anything, or are we going to be waiting till the Friday after the draft here on Birds 365 before we can talk about what the Eagles did with those picks?
I think we'll see them maneuver draft picks before that draft starts. If they get an offer they're comfortable with, if they can get an offer, they can get a 2023 first, I think they'll make a move. But we got to keep this in mind. They don't have the 6th pick anymore like they did at the beginning last year before they traded down to 12. They have 15, 16, and 19. So that could be a little bit more, how can I say, the draft points aren't as high for them. I'll say that.
Oh, I hope they do something because they'll give it that much more to talk about. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Jeff Kerr. Thank you much for hopping on. We'll talk to you again soon, bud.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Thanks,
Jeff Kerr, CBSSports.com, and a frequent contributor here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We are going to get draft heavy in the conversation within the next 15 minutes. Matt Manicherian is going to hop aboard. For those of you who are loyal Mac and Mac Birds 365 fans, we had Matt on last year. The analytical number crunching aspect of the NFL draft. Matt's a former NFL scout, but he and his buddies have come up with a formula that they use statistics, analytics, and the like to rank and rate all the players. He's got an interesting perspective on the NFL draft. We did it with him last year. Looking forward to doing with him again. Coming up next, Matt Manicherian on Birds 365.